Good to be back. Welcome everyone to the program. We begin with the Minister of Finance, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, who says Nigeria is not in any debt crisis. Has been speculated in many quarters. She was speaking at a public hearing on the budget organized by the National Assembly, where the Finance Minister insists that the country's debt profile is still within reasonable limits. In the meantime, the Debt Management Office says no external borrowing will be done to fund the 2019 budget because the budget has to end by December. The Director General of the Debt Management Office, Patience Oniha, made the clarifications during the budget defense at the National Assembly. According to her, only domestic borrowing will be done, and so far 660 billion has been borrowed domestically. Our correspondent Terry Kumi brings us the details.
We did say in 2019 there was a provision for 1.6 trillion naira of new borrowing. The reality is that it's only the domestic borrowing that will be done because the budget year has to end in December. Okay, so that external borrowing of 802 in the 2019 budget, we are not raising it this year. It will be raised next year. New domestic borrowing for 2019 is 803 billion naira. As at October 2019, we have raised 660 billion. Okay, that leaves a difference of 142 billion naira, which we will raise between now and November.
Well, let's go back to the earlier story we brought to you about the Minister of Finance, who says Nigeria is not in any debt crisis, has been speculated. She has also insisted that the country's debt profile is within reasonable limits. Let's listen to this report.
There were reports at the weekend that the World Bank has approved a $3 billion loan request for the expansion of power transmission and distribution networks in Nigeria. This is one of the loan facilities Nigeria has been chasing to fund critical infrastructure in the country. Nigeria's debt profile currently stands at approximately 25 trillion naira. In the 2020 budget, Nigeria plans to spend 2.4 trillion naira to service both local and foreign debts. But as the federal and even state governments pursue credit facilities to fund infrastructure, there is concern among Nigerians that the country is steadily entering into a debt crisis.
Presentation to National Assembly in a good time.
But the finance minister gives the country a clean bill of health at the National Assembly budget public hearing.
Nigeria does not have a debt crisis. Our total borrowing today is just under 20% of our GDP, while the multilateral institutions project for an economy our size to borrow up to 50 to 55% of our GDP. What we have is a revenue problem.
But even as the finance minister assures Parliament that the country's debt profile is nothing to be scared of, the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, warns that Nigeria is currently in the grip of judgment debt running into billions of naira, arising from bad cases, contract failures, damages and fines against human rights abuses. He makes this disclosure during a budget defense meeting with the Senate Committee on Judiciary, and also asked the committee to appropriate an extra 30 billion naira to his ministry to service the debt annually.
At the home front, judgment debt kept mounting have all conspired to constitute suffocating legal challenges with attendant mounting financial demands in servicing them.
Lawmakers appear favorably disposed to the minister's request and advise him to send it to the National Assembly in form of a bill, as the money is not included in the 2020 budget.
In certain respects,
the Minister of Justice is also requesting approval from the National Assembly that a commission of 2.5% of a total recovered loot should be given to the Asset Recovery Unit in his office to service bills arising from judgments. Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
With the successful completion of negotiations for the new minimum wage and the consequential adjustments, the Federal Executive Council has ordered that payments must be completed by the 31st of December 2019. The document is also to be sent to the states to guide possible negotiation and also implementation. The Minister of Labour and Productivity, Senator Chris Ngige, at the Federal Executive Council meeting spoke on the directive for the deadline payment.
Worked out by the National Salaries and Incomes and Wages Commission as consequential adjustment should take effect from April 18th, 2019, the day the new National Minimum Wage Act came into being. Council also approved for us that the financial implications worked out and the attendant payments should be completed on or before 31st December 2019.
Well, for more perspectives on the minimum wage December deadline, Mr. Bashir Lawal, Secretary General of the Joint National Public Service Negotiation Council, joins us via Skype from Yaba. I would like to thank you for joining us on the program and ask, with the successful completion of negotiations for the new minimum wage, the consequential adjustments between Labour and government, they have come a long way. Briefly tell us how we got to a middle ground.
Oh, the question is not clear.
Okay, let me repeat myself. Let me repeat that. And that is looking at the journey from April to this point. How did both government and Labour get to the middle ground? Briefly.
Yes, as you are very much aware, it was a treacherous journey. We bargained, we negotiated, and at the end of the day, reasons prevailed. It's a question of give and take. What we were asking for, we moderated it. What they were offering, they also moderated it. And we arrived at what everybody can call a sort of win-win situation. And we hope we'll be able to move from where we are now in the shortest possible time towards ensuring that workers also have a fair bargain in respect of their salaries and allowances. So that's the stage we are now. Thank you.
So, Mr. Lawal, the Federal Executive Council, they've ordered that payments should be completed on or before 31st of December this year, where the Minister of Labour and Employment said a document to this effect will also be sent to the states as a possible guide on negotiation, also implementation. Are you optimistic that at the state level there will be a consensus?
Yeah, there is no problem as regards that of the state level. With this current one, we are very glad that the federal government has acceded to our request that our demand that the effective date should be 18th of April 2019, when the Minimum Wage Act was assented to by Mr. President. So that's a very good development. And we're also happy that they are saying that payments should be completed on or before the 31st of December. This is another good development, because if this kind of directive is not given, you see some bureaucratic bottleneck coming into play, such that you will be finding a situation whereby some people have not been able to collect their money, maybe by the February or March next year. But we are glad a very straightforward message has been given to the finance minister. It is unambiguous, and we will also be monitoring. So we expect that the circular should be out any moment from now, and preparation of necessary vouchers online will be done, so that as the Federal Executive Council are directed, by the end of December, workers can turn this into naira and kobo in their pockets. As for the states, our position is that in fact, the feelers we are getting from most of the states is that they are prepared to even pay more than what the federal government is offering. And it will not be out of place to start looking at some of that. We may be having a scenario where some states will not want to comply very well. But I want us to look at it in a way that when we get to the bridge, we'll cross it. We are very much prepared. We have called a meeting of our state councils for 5th of November. And at that meeting, we are going to share experiences. We are going to tell them how far we've gone, the intrigues, and so that they can be fully prepared. That is the joint council in each of the states towards ensuring that workers in the states also have something to cheer about. You saw the case of Kaduna. Kaduna even implemented before the federal government even agreed to do something. And what they implemented was clear in terms of percentage. So we are not envisaging problems at the state level. We want to believe that everything will go on seamlessly. We are very much here.
That's a lot of optimism there, Mr. Lawal, because we know that about 20 states are saying, yes, that they can afford it. But we also know with history, the situation of some of the other states as well, with even state-generated revenues. But looking at what the claim of government in the first place, that the personnel cost, even in the budget, has skyrocketed. I mean, are these areas that you think Labour should be looking at in helping the country and government?
The question is not clear. It's humming. I'm sorry, I'm not hearing it
well. It's the final question, and this is the claim of government's personnel costs skyrocketing. Is this something that Labour is also looking to, advising the government on how to plug areas that they can get more funds to set off personnel costs, minimum wage?
If I get it very well, you are talking about the personnel cost. As much as we know, the figures before us, the real personnel cost of when you are looking at workers now, the real workers who bake the wealth of this country, the personnel cost is not out of sync. It's something that is very much okay. Very much okay, even with this minimum wage thing. Any government that is telling you that the personnel cost will be thrown off the state, they are not being sincere. If they are talking of the salaries of political office holders, that is none of our business, because in most cases they do some of these things with impunity, and we've told them. And even then, when you really look at it, do the arithmetics, 2 + 2, 3 + 3, 1 + 3, and all these things, personnel cost as we speak is very much manageable. That is, if government is there to be sincere with workers. So what played out at the national level, at the federal level, you saw that the figures that were being paraded are not correct. And we thank God when the Labour Minister was relating, some of these facts were thrown on the table. And the government side agree with us that what we have been saying at the issue was correct.
All right.
And they moderated some of these because that's why I would.
We'd like to thank you. You said we need to do the arithmetic on that last question, but we'd like to thank you for your thoughts at this time. He is the Secretary General of the Joint National Public Service Negotiating Council. We'll take a break. When we return, we'll be bringing you more on the Bayelsa governorship election. Join us again.